Good evening. My name is Merryn Rutledge, and I'm going to read from my first book, Sweet Juice and Ruby Bitter Seed, and a few poems from the book that will come out next spring, both from Kelsey Books, which I'm very grateful to. The first poem is Serendipity, and in this poem I try to solve a problem in a very unsystematic way. So, if you are a methodical person, this poem may drive you nuts. You may even want to cover your ears. Serendipity. After unsuccessfully Googling my problem, the milky film on my dishwasher walls, I was leafing through the Kenmore manual and poking my head in my appliance to eyeball what was on the parts list when the word filters caught my eye. You're supposed to clean the filters? Who knew? I just moved in and reading directions isn't my thing. Back inside the machine, under the bottom rack where I didn't think anybody but Kenmore Repair would ever stick their head, I sought to plumb the mystery of where the filters hid. I found the handle of a paring knife, rusty and unmanned by the loss of its blade, a crusty dime that raised questions about what the previous homeowners ate, and sea glass, sanded smooth by spinning washer blades and lodged between two dirty filter screens. After scrubbing each one with an old toothbrush I found under the sink, I climbed back on the web where I located a product called Finish that promised to remove a mineral film. I felt hopeful, like when you're nearing the end of a long board game and you look up to find the rain that kept you indoors has stopped, so you can go for a walk around the lake where mysteries are not for solving, like how a whirl makes drying leaves pirouette on toe point, and how, just before it slips away, the slanting sun flares to burnish a stand of yellowing beach to gold. Also from the book, this is a prose poem, so maybe some of you can see that it's arranged as paragraphs. And I was inspired by reading an essay by Joy Harjo, that wonderful poet, who said in the essay, "I'm convinced that most waywardness is creativity turned backwards." She's speaking of the imprisoned men to whom she taught creative writing. Bad boys. Cousin Daryl told whoppers his dad called lies. Snapping turtle big as a tire wheel. Big old water moccasin thick as my daddy's arm. The sting at the end of his father's arm didn't change much about his voluble son. As a grown man, the fish Daryl catches are invariably huge. And Montana, where he got rich selling houses, is the best place to live in the whole US of A. My brother Kyle started kicking holes in doors when he was 3. In school, he didn't sit still, raise his hand, or read. Kyle told me one time, after a teacher conference, Mon broke down crying in the parking lot. He watched her shoulders heave, but felt he couldn't do anything for her because he really had failed everything but recess. After trying one thing and another, our parents sent him to wildlife camp, where he learned scads of bird species from just hearing their calls. Dr. Kyle still has trouble reading, but he likes listening to his patients and birdsong. Now turning to my book that will come out in the spring, the title is To Carve a Path Through Thickets. And it comes from the poem that opens the book, which is dedicated to my father, whose name was Lloyd Lafayette. But Southerner that he was soon nicknamed Fate. Setting out. He left home with a cast iron skillet, matches, a little flour, lard, and Void, Vidal, Curtis, Caldwell, who would follow him anywhere. Joining them were 3 classmates ripe for adventure. Fate had been reading Thoreau, whose experiment he aimed to adapt to wilder conditions in the Ozarks. Used to woods and solitary work, Fate imagined he had already tasted a little of the marrow of life the Walden man was after. Miss Troy, the teacher who brought him the Concord sages, also confirmed that you had to reflect on your experiences in order to effect a deepening. Then there was no telling what would unfold. The boys hiked as the long spring day unspooled. By the time they decided they were far enough from the one-street hamlet of their civilization, they were famished. Gnarly blackberry patches nearby, and the bears had left some. The boys built a fire and baked a gooey cobbler, juice turning to candy from a little scorching. As dusk swooped in, Fate invited the others to think about what becoming a leader would entail. Void guffawed, chiding his friend for staying so serious. Fate grinned and eased up in favor of owl entertainment. Lying down beside the others, it came to him that this was what he wanted to do: guide boys and girls on adventures, like how to feed a firelit soul and carve a path through thickets that lay between them and being grown. In the meantime, he determined to stay awake with the creatures stirring around him, watching for ways to venture into the dark. In the next one, another one of my faults, besides unsystematic thinking, is loss of perspective. This is called perspective, where I seek to get it back. Fed up with fretting over taxes and email that stings and the slow drip of words that pool in my mind, I take a walk to find what is bigger. Lining my street, svelte, young sycamores sashay like models down a runway. Older trees, fat, knuckled, speckle-barked, willingly upstaged. Their own limbs seem to whistle, though, like piercing piccolos. Warblers serenade the village of tall townhouses that hum with stories of neighbors' lives. Carols, too, and Paul's and Susan's, who, when they died, left themselves here among us other elders with careers, grandkids, travel. Joys, struggles, sorrows, some greater than mine. In the far field, with the marsh beyond, looms the blunt-nosed boulder, Moby Dick, big as a barge, and how deep under? The sky, brushed with cirrus clouds, whispering possibility. Rain coming, my next-door neighbor confirms as I walk back up my driveway. Millions of raindrops will shower the estuary's long neck as it winds toward the illimitable sea. Finally, somewhat in the spirit of the intergenerational poems that you were reading, Ariel, and not motherhood in this case, but grandmotherhood. This is called Gift. A friend's gait is wobbly. Another one has worn out knees. Mine creaky as I trot beside my grandson Marcel. Why are your teeth black? He wants to know. Tea stains I can hardly see. Still, I know myself better now, how to let go of small slights, how to catch the thief inside who tries to snatch my self-esteem, how to touch serenity by naming daily blessings as I tap each bead on the large bangle Marcel created as a toddler, generously threading bright plastic on a pipe cleaner. He evidently thought the stiff hoop would fit my grown-up wrist, thin, eroding tracery. Or maybe he saw but imagined me anyway, sturdy and always. When I was raising his mother, all the unlovely imperfect I threw away. Macaroni necklaces, crooked origami, a coat hanger bearded with yarn. Now, love's ambitious project I save. This is it. And I now actually use it as my prayer beads every night. Thank you for listening.